Let me just set a timer for myself here. Thank you all for hanging with us toward the end of today's full day of sessions. My name is Kelvin Bentley. I serve as a program manager within the Office of Academic Affairs within what is called the University of Texas system. We are a system of 14 campuses, 9 academic, think of them as traditional academic universities, and then we also have campuses that are devoted to kind of health-related careers, including medical schools and so on. And we serve over 260,000 students, so we're the largest university system in our state, and then of course one of the largest nationally. And just very thankful to be here, and just thank the organizers for setting up this conference. I have lots of slides, and again, 20 minutes will go by quickly. So what I will do, obviously you'll have a copy of the notes. I'm going to probably spend a little bit more time toward the middle and end of the conversation, just showing off some data that we are trying to gather about our initiative. Really what we're trying to do is find a way to grow and scale access to basically to industry recognized credentials for our students and alumni. Our project in part has been described as broadly educated, specifically skilled, which is a slogan that our chancellor, J.B. Milliken, actually coined around the time that this initiative started back. Really, the original idea came from him back in 2020. So just as the pandemic was ramping up, he was starting to have internal conversations with internal stakeholders and also folks within our state, like the Texas Workforce Commission, various employers. And what we were trying to do back then, and this predates my time within our system, what we were trying to do is identify ways to really help our learners stand out more in the world of work, especially graduates from our system who we knew, and these are mostly liberal arts majors. So these are folks who we knew through data that Texas has access to, those who are not doing so well, at least in those first couple years post-graduation, right? So, for example, my doctorate and master's are in clinical psych, but my undergraduate degree was in psychology. And as you can imagine, without a graduate degree, it could be very challenging for you, depending on your circumstances and skills, to actually earn a livable wage. And within Texas, we actually have access to unemployment insurance data for our graduates. And so kind of unlike certain states, we're able to kind of track our alumni and actually calculate their median salaries 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years post-graduation, which maybe I can actually go to. And again, these first couple slides are just like background. Again, we've started since 2020, and we've received funding and support, not just from our system, but also from the Strada Education Foundation, which I'd like to highlight. They had a grant called the Beyond Completion Challenge grant, which allowed us to do some of our initial piloting with industry credentials on the Coursera platform. How many of you represent colleges and universities or other organizations that have used Coursera? And so this is almost kind of a way to circle back on the heyday of MOOCs, but now in a more applied, focused way by integrating that content into existing courses and programs. But this is some of the data that we have access to. So actually, if you go to our Seek UT website, it's kind of hard to see here, but when you get a copy of the notes, you can either ask me for the URL or take a look here. But anyone, including parents and students, can actually, or prospective students, can go and take a look at our dashboard and track median salaries by not just the major, but also campuses. And so this is just one way that we are tracking these various job outcomes for our students. And again, median salaries only, it's devoid of anything else in terms of personality, right? Because you can be a jerk in an interview. You might also be very limited in terms of where you live geographically. So the jobs might be outside of your small town of 100 people. And so there's various reasons why the median salaries could be a little less for you, depending. Again, it takes not just a system or a village. It takes villagers. And so here I just wanted to represent all of our partners. So we have CALE, the Council for Adult and Experiential Learning. Today, and actually yesterday, I learned a new topic, recognition for learning, which again is a great term. I think probably in the United States, we maybe need to shift more to that because we think about credit for prior learning in the context of university and college life, which is great, but we need to think broadly, right? And so I love your focus on that at the conference here. And this infographic, this kind of shows you our approach. Again, micro-credentials from industry providers. So even though we have faculty who are actually leveraging or creating their own micro-credentials, like UT Austin has faculty governance dating back 2018, where they actually have developed micro-credentials to signal to industry what students know and what they can do. We are leveraging what are called basically professional certificates on the Coursera platform that are curated in a certain set called the Career Academy. So think of them as like 40 to 50 professional certs. And many of them require lots of requisite micro courses. For example, the Google Data Analytics cert comes with 8 micro courses that can take you 2 to 3 months, perhaps even longer. But that's based on 10 hours of devotion to reviewing the videos and all of that, as well as completing the assessments. But our work with the Texas Credentials for the Future project is to, again, grant that access to the micro-credentials, but then another bigger part of this is not just focused on our learner, but also the faculty, right? So leveraging initial grant funds from the Strata Education Foundation, we provided our faculty access to basically professional development on what are micro-credentials, why do they matter, why are students focused on them. And so that started at the system level for our faculty, and now I feel like more and more of our campuses are actually engaging in faculty development at the campus level, which is excellent to see. So now the universities are taking more ownership in terms of trying to get more of their faculty involved in the integration of micro-credentials. And then our work also includes how do we integrate micro-credentials in programs co-curricularly, right? Because in a given semester as a psych faculty teaching abnormal psychology, I might in the fall decide to integrate a micro-credential in a course, but maybe in the spring I'm teaching something very different, or maybe I'm on sabbatical, right? Or I'm doing something else. And so we don't want to necessarily just want to hang our hat on one approach. We do want to also look at co-curricular options. And I liked the fact that someone in the audience mentioned something earlier today about wraparound services. Like, it's great to give students or learners access to industry credentials on the Coursera platform, but that's not enough too, right? You have to think about how, what type of outreach and marketing to the students will you offer, which I'll touch upon in a little bit. So here are some slides on faculty development. We even gave a digital badge for those who successfully completed a summer program initially. Now, this particular training at the system level is available asynchronously on a learning management platform. We have been able to do some other things as well. We're tracking this is, again, rough, but we are tracking who's doing what, because you're probably thinking, well, great, you're offering faculty an opportunity to learn about micro-credentials, and then how do you know who's doing what in what courses? And so we are literally surveying our faculty across our system, leveraging some of the relationships I already have with project managers who I work with locally on the campuses, who are actually doing their full-time jobs. Some are administrators, some are faculty champions, and so forth and so on. So again, it takes a lot of people, I think, to kind of do this work well, to track what's going on behind the scenes. And then in terms of co-curricular options, we have campuses like University of Texas Arlington, which is featured here. They developed initially a program called Power Up Tech Up to offer learners. Initially, it was designed to offer transfer students the ability to complete some skill-based modules around durable skills, in addition to some of the Google certs in data analytics and in other areas. And then also here we have some examples of how campuses like UT Austin, our flagship research institution, is also trying to work with internship students so that the internship experience includes access to industry credentials as well. Again, it takes a lot of outreach. These are landing pages. So as a system, because we are doubling down and tripling down on this work, the campuses have done an excellent job, I think, in terms of getting the word out about the availability of these industry credentials, mostly on the Coursera platform. UT Arlington, for example, is leveraging additional professional certs from providers like Adobe, which until recently was not available on the Coursera platform. But if you've been following the news, Adobe has some new agreement now with Coursera. So it makes it just a little bit easier, because we've received questions about, well, why are you working with Coursera versus another provider? Well, it allows us to really to give wide access to industry recognized credentials on one platform, right? Versus establishing separate relationships with Coursera, Google, Meta, and others. So again, great to see these examples. And the outreach, again, involves other things too, in terms of just kind of direct emails and these types of visuals to kind of get students excited and to remind them that this is free. This is a no-cost benefit, at least for the next couple of years. And then I think as a system, we'll reevaluate to what extent systems might have to contribute to paying for this type of a benefit. Maybe there will be some type of student fee. Again, I'm speculating because I don't really know, but at least at this point, our Board of Regents, as of last year, approved an extension of our Coursera contract, which began with 9 universities, and now we actually have expanded it system-wide. So all 14 institutions, including our health institutions, have no-cost access to the professional certs on the Coursera platform. Not the entire catalog. Again, those 40 or 50 on the Career Academy portion of the catalog. And if you're not familiar with those 40 or 50, again, simply Google Career Academy Coursera and you'll find them. Okay, just some other things I'll just highlight as well. Again, we also have some marketing around alumni outreach. And this is where I wanted to be roughly around this time, because I know I probably have only about 5 or 6 minutes left. Data. Let's talk about data really quickly. Here are some questions that we tried to look at. Again, we're looking at perceptions, but this is interesting work in the sense that we're going to go beyond just sending out surveys to students to say, hey, how was your micro-credentialing experience, right? Was it cool? Did you like it? Did it help you in any way in terms of your next job or your reskilling goals? We're actually going to look longitudinally over time, leveraging some data resources that we're going to use to find out over time, if you have a degree plus an industry credential, does that matter compared to those who actually just earn a traditional degree from one of our campuses? Again, that's a big ask, but that's where we're headed, to at least get some context around answering that question. And my hope, and for those of you who are doing similar work, please let me know, because this type of data collection, to my knowledge, it's not really being done very often. There are organizations like Strada Education Foundation that just has created a new organization called CredLens, where they're going to actually dig into more of the job outcomes data for non-degree credential earners. But again, at the campus level, and definitely not at the system level, is this work really actively being done, like linking micro-credential learners demographically to those job outcomes. And so that's where we're headed. And so these are just some of the activities that we're doing. We get monthly data reports from Coursera. So that's another benefit of working with one major platform like them. We get really cool data from them in terms of enrollments and course completions and those types of things. We've created a Power BI dashboard based on that data. And we are also surveying faculty and students as well as we go. And so look, here's some data for you. Again, it's a moving target. This is a cumulative report. So this is as of 2022, how many people have enrolled versus those who have actually completed. And so you can see at the top of the funnel, we have lots of interest, right? So that's not our challenge. Our bigger challenge is the fact that many of the industry credentials are actually, they require time and effort, right? And so students and alumni are very busy. And so we are finding that even by embedding them in courses and offering them co-curricularly, we do have fewer students who, at least at this point, complete. But our hope is by, again, collecting additional data, we're going to ask them questions. So for those of you who did not complete your microcredential, what were your challenges? So far, we found that time is, of course, the biggest concern. But the interesting thing in terms of some of our survey data, check this, well, here's a Power BI dashboard before I get to survey data. So we are finding a way by campus. We can also filter by the type of learner, students versus alumni versus faculty and staff. On the bottom right, you can also see the types of certificates that we can also track. So this is really cool, for me anyway, at a high level to track this. And again, we also are tracking demographic data as well. We're tracking by major the enrollments. And so we're going above and beyond what Coursera alone can provide. And this is because we have access to a data warehouse for our system, so we can link demographic data to Coursera data. Because if you think about it, Coursera data typically does not speak to your student information system, right? And so for those of you who are interested in talking with me more about how we did this, I can, at a high level, I kind of just said it, but behind the scenes, it is an interesting process. It really involves working with institutional research folks locally on the campuses to get that data match every time. And we do that twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring. Here's the demographics that we're also tracking. And so this helps us go above and beyond just asking demographic-related data in a survey. We can validate the demographics because we have access to that data warehouse. And so here are some of our top 10 course specializations on the Coursera platform that we're tracking. Of course, it doesn't include things like Adobe and other things. We have to kind of like ask certain campuses who have industry credentials outside of Coursera what their enrollments are like. But because Coursera is so readily available to our learners, these are really our top industry credentials, at least for now. Okay, so in terms of survey data, I promised I would cover this really quickly. So this is back in April of this year. We sent out a survey to anyone who had enrolled in one or more Coursera microcredential. And so that original pool was about 7,600 people. And out of that, we received over 650 who completed the survey. And so far, the results are positive at a high level. Most people said that, hey, they found the microcredential relevant to their career goals. Most of them also indicated that, for them, the microcredential that they selected, they were highly satisfied with it, somewhat to very satisfied. And then look at this. Would you recommend microcredentials to others, right? So this is almost kind of like a heck yeah, just in terms of the number of people who actually indicated yes. We have started a process where we are also doing some follow-up interviews, but that's still very nascent in this work because we've only conducted 14 so far. But a lot of the interviews do echo some of the original survey data that we collected. So. And then some other things that are maybe interesting to some of you, we're also, because of the funding that we received from the Strata Education Foundation, we are trying to also give our Coursera learners access to a digital wallet. So we have partnered with Territorium to allow for that. And our campuses are not just leveraging the digital wallet with their learners, but also the comprehensive learner record. We hope to also do some piloting around that. And so really the next few slides just talk about that and some examples of that by campus. And then on the horizon, we're going to continue to work with CALE, the Council for Adult and Experiential Learning, to do professional development around credit for prior learning. Because again, given that we're integrating the micro-credentials in courses, we want our faculty to be thinking about CPL considerations. We're going to track micro-credential earners' outcomes, provide support for some other things we're working on too, provide support to a new community of practice with the National Association of System Heads and Google. So our work, that project actually is a project for us to replicate our model with other university systems. And so that community of practice has just started. And so we hope to do that. And then we're working with organizations like Stepping Blocks, which is kind of a sophisticated learning analytics data scrubber tool to help track our alumni across the system. And the cool thing there is that unemployment insurance data only provides us with with salary data for our learners. What's missing is more contextual things like the positions of the learners, right? Are you a director of blah, 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 or are you a project manager? Unemployment insurance data that we have access to doesn't tell us job titles. And so using Stepping Blocks, we're going to hopefully get at that, because the data scraping scrapes data from sites like GitHub, LinkedIn, other publicly available sites. I keep hitting that, I don't know why. So we hope to get some additional data, because as you can imagine, we're trying to put together a very sophisticated jigsaw puzzle, right? It's part Coursera, part student information system demographics data, job outcomes data, survey data. So there's lots here that makes this type of a project data rich, and also it has the potential to really inform the field, I think, over time, especially if we can also find, hint, hint, colleges and university systems, regardless of whether you are in the States or not, doing similar work. Because if we can do that, I think that's where we lift all ships and really have better data insights. So with that being said, challenges and opportunities really quickly. Again, microlearner data is manually matched. Coursera links to micro-credentials are not currently verifiable credentials. We're working with them. And so these are just some of the things that we are challenged with, but we're moving forward. And again, you'll have a copy of the notes. I forgot to include my email address, but if you just look me up in the program, Kelvin Bentley, and do a LinkedIn search, please connect with me, and I can then send you my UT system email address. And so with that, thanks again for the opportunity. If you're also interested, I've included a link to a recent report about our work that you might be interested in. And I'll leave this link here. And thanks again. Appreciate the time.